Janina, if you've applied through the Public Access to Information Act and these parties are citing legislation not requiring them to make this information available, how is that sort of conflict coming about then? I mean, how do you solve that?
One of the decisions we had to make before sending out the PIA applications is, do we send them, the PIA has you can send two forms. You can either send a form to a public entity, which would be the form you send to government, or a private entity, which is a different form. And we had to send the private forms because in the IDASA judgment, in, I think it was 2003, part of the judgment said that political parties are private entities for the sake of their fundraising activities. I mean, we can debate forever whether or not they are public or private. I think that's a different discussion. But because of that, we had to send them the private entity form from PIA. The challenge now is that with the private forms, there is no appeals process. So there's a 30-day, we had the deadline last week Friday, so there was a 30-day period in which the political parties could respond. If they don't respond or if they refuse our request, we then have to go to court. So there's no other option for MVC in terms of trying to get this information.
And lastly, how are political parties usually funded, particularly ahead of an election, and is, I guess, your sort of objective to try and sort of suss out if there's any cronyism going on or that kind of thing?
So political parties are also funded from the public purse. So those political parties that are represented in the National Assembly and Provincial Assembly get money from the IEC and get money from Parliament. That information is publicly available, so you'll know how much was given to each political party, and they report on that information to Parliament and to the IEC. The private information is nowhere to be found. So we know they get money from individuals and companies, which would be local and international, that some of them may be getting money from foreign governments, but there is no information out there at all to say so we can't tell you. We know what the possible sources are, but we can't say conclusively and name what those sources are.
So next step for you guys?
Next step is to go to court. So we're actually meeting with our lawyers tomorrow, and the MVC board meets next week to decide on next steps. But the fight is definitely not over. I think South Africa's democracy is maturing. Our electoral system needs to mature. We may not have needed this legislation in '94, but we definitely need it now. And the South African public and the electorate and those who are making a decision as to who to vote for definitely need this information, because at the end of the day, who a political party accepts money from is a much more accurate indication of what they stand for than any of the slogans or the one-liners that you see on the posters, in the adverts on TV. If you want to know what a political party stands for, you need to look at where they accept money from.